Yo, what's going on, guys? Seth Spartan here, nutrition, training, and hormone expert and Prometheus Pro bodybuilder with Prometheus HRT, the world's best testosterone and hormone replacement clinic. Use my code Spartan to save on either testosterone or HGH replacement therapy or peptides or Anavar, Anadrol, and the list goes on as long as you qualify. Guys, without any further ado, this is HGH unleashed like you've never heard it before. Guys, we're going to go through all the pros, unbiased, uncensored, absolutely everything you could ever want or need to know for that matter. From there, we're going to jump in over onto the cons. Again, unbiased, uncensored, absolutely everything you need to know. From there, we're going to drop down into dosage, talk about medical dosing. We'll talk about a full HGH replacement dose and what that is, and also how much HGH you produce naturally at your peak between 16 and 18 years old. So, and then from there, guys, we're gonna finish up with last but not least, any extra additional information that people, plain and simple, either they don't talk about in the first place or they don't know in the first place. We're gonna talk about things like comparing HGH to IGF-1, and explain just why HGH blows, that's right, HGH completely blows IGF-1 out of the water in terms of pros and cons, and also fat loss, muscle mass, and everything else. So guys, you're not gonna wanna miss this. This is gonna be one of the best unleashed videos ever, arguably that I've ever done, and we're gonna talk about everything with HGH. Here we go. Guys, starting with the pros, I'm Seth Spartan. This is HGH Unleashed. What is HGH in the first place? Simply put, guys, HGH stands for human growth hormone. Human growth hormone is a 191 amino acid sequence peptide that, guess what, is released from the human pituitary gland. After HGH is released from the human pituitary gland, enters systemic circulation in the bloodstream. There it's converted into IGF-1 via the liver. So we have two different chains of effects with HGH. We have the effects of HGH before it gets converted into IGF-1, which exhibits a short half-life and shorter effects, namely around 20 minutes, half an hour, give or take, depending on the individual. And then we have the conversion into IGF-1 and all the IGF-1 effects after HGH has been converted into IGF-1 via the liver. However, for this HGH Unleashed video, we're going to be talking about the effects of both, and it's only going to be at the end where I am going to split the two, HGH and IGF-1, and talk about why HGH is by far superior in terms of bodybuilding, fitness, athletics, and why it is superior for all of these pros over IGF-1 use if you were to say, hey, I'm either going to use HGH or IGF-1 alone. We're going to explain why HGH is the best option. So anyways, we talked about what HGH is. It's a peptide hormone, 191 amino acid sequence released from the pituitary gland. We already talked about that. Moving on into the pros. This is, guys, and I'm giving it to you guys straight, all right? We're going to start with the biggest pros from a bodybuilding, fitness, athletic standpoint, all right? So moving from there, we're going to move down the chain. So make sure you stick around for all the pros, stick around for all the cons. And guys, I guarantee you, you're going to learn quite a lot. Hopefully, all right? Here we go. Biggest pro with HGH, HGH Unleashed. You guys already know what I'm going to say. Fat burning. Fat burning and fat loss is the biggest, hugest pro with HGH usage in terms of bodybuilding, fitness, athletics. HGH rips off body fat like nobody's business. If you have used HGH before, you know what I am talking about. Let me rephrase that. If you have used prescription grade pharmaceutical HGH, you know what I'm talking about in terms of fat burning. And guys, let me bring up a study here. I remember looking through a study, and this is what they did. They split two groups of people, group A and group B. First group was in just a regular caloric deficit, no HGH, and the other one was in the same caloric deficit, and again, everything's controlled. different body weights, taking account all of that, all the stuff we love in studies, right? So group A, group B, one, same diet, same exercise, no HGH, same diet, same exercise with HGH. And I believe it was only a few IUs. I think it was only 2 IUs, 2 or 3 IUs. Having said that, the group receiving HGH burnt 50% more fat with calories the same, training the same, everything the same. So what do we see here? Calories in versus calories out is not a correct measurement. We have to always take into account hormones. If I had a twin, let's say I had an identical twin, we did the same workout, lived the same, but my HGH levels were higher, I would burn more fat even if our calories were exactly the same. And guys, a lot of nutritionists, dietitians, doctors do not take this into account, how important hormones really are. So, having said that, the biggest pro with HGH, human growth hormone, is fat burning. This cannot be understated. HGH rips off body fat, and like I said, there are studies out there to look that up. Look up fat burning HGH studies into Google, and you will find these. Having said that, moving on from fat burning, and you know what, real quick, I guess this is HGH Unleashed. We're going to talk about everything. I'm going to explain why HGH burns fat. Okay, whether it's HGH, human growth hormone, released from the human pituitary gland, entering the bloodstream that way, or if it's somebody taking an HGH exogenous injection, such as you can get at Prometheus HRT, or whether it's me, I'm prescribed ipamorelin, CJC 1295, no DAC, for basically boosting my HGH levels back to where I was when I was 18. That's what I'm using. Extremely powerful, extremely effective, and it works, all right? Go watch my ipamorelin video on that. Go watch Ipamorelin Unleashed or best dosage for ipamorelin, whatever you want. Having said all that, and again, all this stuff is from Prometheus HRT, prescription pharmaceutical grade. Having said all that, when I take my ipamorelin, right? Whether the HGH is secreted from the pituitary, whether it's taken exogenously as an injection, or whether you're taking HGH peptides, all prescription grade, okay? What's going to happen is the HGH is going to bind directly. That's right, not when it converts into IGF-1. The HGH itself will bind directly onto HGH receptor sites on the fat cell itself. All right, here's the HGH, binds the receptor sites on the actual fat cells. This is how it works. And guess what it tells the fat cells to do? Release the stored lipids, the stored body fat, stored fatty lipids into the bloodstream. What's going to happen? The HGH is going to be converted into IGF-1. IGF-1 is going to take those fat cells and basically burn them on metabolic functions, tissue growth, muscle growth, and if you're training, muscle recovery, things like this. But regardless, without a doubt, even training, nutrition, everything considered equal, if you have higher HGH levels through naturally HGH injection, HGH peptides, you're going to burn way more fat. Why? Those receptor sites on the fat cells are going to be basically keep dumping fat into your bloodstream for your body to use. The IGF-1 that is going to be telling your body to basically use it to repair these tissues. So the IGF-1 is like the helper of HGH. It's basically helping push the fat cells that HGH has already mobilized into use in the body. And that is why, if you're a 16, 18-year-old with good genetics, you can eat almost anything and not get fat. And then we notice later, when you're exiting college and your HGH levels are cut way down, you get fat very, very fast, all right? So anyways, this is how HGH works. And there are HGH, like I said, there is HGH receptor sites directly on the fat cells themselves. So naturally, if HGH levels are higher, what is happening? Your body is burning more stored body fat all the time, and that's what leads to fat loss. Moving on, I'm glad I could explain that for you guys. Moving on from fat burning, let's talk about this. Insane healing effect with HGH. Why is this important? They did a major study on with HGH on recovery times from major surgeries. And you know what they found out? I'm just going to have to attach all of these studies. Just boom, 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 for you guys just watch this. But anyways, here's the bottom line. Patients that were recovering from major surgeries recovered twice as fast, about twice as fast when receiving HGH therapy during the recovery process. Now, why HGH is not, I do not believe in the US, HGH is allowed to be prescribed by the doctor for major surgery recovery. And if I had to guess, I would guess it goes something like this. I attached in one of my videos the insane, and by insane, I mean thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars it costs every single day to keep, the hospital's charged to keep a patient in a hospital. So I think it has something to do with money, because if somebody is receiving HGH while they're recovering from their major surgery, guess what? They're going to be out of the hospital about twice as fast. That's what we see. Recovery times are cut way, way down. It's either 50% to double, all right? But it's a huge increase. I remember being mind blown with this major surgery study. So if we're talking about human growth hormone, HGH, we are talking insane healing recovery. And it does not matter what kinds of major surgery. Why? Because pretty much every tissue in the human body has HGH receptor sites. It is going to drastically speed up wound healing, joints, tendons, ligaments. It speeds up everything, all right? It speeds up. HGH is the healing hormone, or the life hormone, if you want to call it that. So, second huge pro is insane healing and also recovery. And this is another reason, guys, why, if you take surgery times, why you recover so much faster. If you're a teenager, you recover way faster from injuries and also major surgeries versus if you are, a 40-year-old person. And why? HGH, human growth hormone. Moving on. In the pros, has to be said, giving credit where credit's due with HGH. HGH, this is going to blow a lot of people's minds, and people, don't talk about this really in the bodybuilding world, or they lie about it, all right? HGH, large muscle mass increases, long term. People don't talk about this. Now, I don't know if they just don't notice it, or if they're just trying to say, oh, I was able to achieve all this through perfect diet, nutrition, and whatever else, all right? And leave out the drug use. But here's the bottom line. We're going to get into short term. HGH only gives a small short-term boost in muscle mass. We're going to get into that in just a second. However, has to be said, period, without a doubt, HGH gives a large, and by large, I mean a large increase in muscle mass long-term, if used long-term. Now, why is this? A couple of reasons. First off, when your HGH levels, let's say you have mid-range or low HGH levels. When you come up to the same level you were at when you're 18, that's what I'm doing through Prometheus HRT, prescription grade, ipamorelin CJC. If I get older and my pituitary doesn't work as well, then I will go synthetic HGH. But that's beside the point right now. We'll talk about this later. What happens when you go from low or mid-range HGH to all of a sudden being at the very peak, right when you were 16 or 18 years old? What happens? Immediately, guys, improved hypertrophy. This is immediate. You have improved hypertrophy. You also have a large increase, and I said large increase in muscle hyperplasia. Now, a lot of people, bodybuilders, fitness, athletic, they will not admit that HGH does this, okay? They will not admit that HGH builds large amounts of muscle mass when used long-term. Why? Because immediately when you do this, right when you start use, you have improved hypertrophy. What does this mean? Your body becomes much more efficient and effective at building muscle. You go to the gym, let's say I went to the gym, and you benched one really hard set. One all-out really hard set. You can watch some of my crazy bench videos. You leave, you eat, you go home, and you rest. if I had high HGH levels, I'm just talking in the normal range. Let's say I went right back to where I was when I was 16 to 18. My hypertrophy from that is going to be much better and much more efficient and effective compared to if I had lower HGH levels. Period. All right? Everything works smoother, works better with testosterone at the whole system as a whole, whether it's making testosterone more effective and work better, or HGH is actually one of the only things alongside L-carnitine tartrate, or L-carnitine, because you could take L-carnitine just by eating a bunch of red meat, but HGH, sleep, L-carnitine are some of the only things in the world that actually boost androgen receptor sensitivity. What does that mean? They make your androgen receptor sites more sensitive to testosterone or other androgens, such as anabolic steroids. So when talking about HGH, and guys, I'm giving it to you how it is, all right? I'm giving it to you how it is, without covering up anything. This is, again, HGH unleashed. So large muscle mass increases through improved hypertrophy. We talked about this already, how this happens immediately. And also large increases in muscle hyperplasia. Now, hyperplasia refers to let's say you're killing hard weight training workouts, or even let's say you're an endurance athlete and you're hard training. What is going to happen? Those of you that know what hyperplasia is already know what I'm going to say. Guys, what happens is those muscle cells, and this happens with both type 1 and type 2 fibers, as far as we know. There's some split scientists on this, but regardless, the muscle fiber cells, the stem cells can come in, and to make this video short, the cells basically, you have more nucleuses splitting off and new muscle cells being created inside the muscle tissue itself. So if we're talking biceps, it looks small at that angle. Yeah, it's a better angle. So if we're talking biceps, or we're talking triceps or legs or whatever, hard training, more muscle cells, period. More HGH means this happens more often, more hyperplasia. Even in natural athletes, if you're pounding, let's say you're pounding bodybuilding workouts, you're training hard, you're doing everything right. Even if you're natural, you're going to have some hyperplasia. But guess what increases hyperplasia? HGH by a lot, which means that you're making new muscle cells more often. So this is why there's a large muscle mass increase with HGH that, again, people won't talk about. Probably a lot of people don't know this because you don't see this on day one. You see this, you'll see some gains. You'll see some gains on HGH in the first week, I guarantee it. But the thing is, it's like a slow drip, okay? You're slowly building more and more muscle mass. But over time, if we're talking, great example, if you go to Prometheus HRT, and you guys do what you want. If you don't want to go through this clinic, you don't have to, but I'm with them for a reason. Anyways, let's say you get HGH replacement. Either they put you back to where you were when you're 18, either with synthetic HGH or HGH peptides. I'm doing the HGH peptide route. I'm younger, my pituitary works great, all right? So I can still do that. What's going to happen? Within a year, you're going to build a lot more muscle. Why? Improved hypertrophy every single day, and also you're going to have large increases in muscle hyperplasia, and you're going to see these gains, a lot of these gains over the course of a year, all right? Boom, okay, we covered that in large detail. Let's talk about this. HGH, small muscle mass increases short term. Why? Got to answer this question. HGH immediately improves hypertrophy. I already talked about this. I don't need to talk about it again. It also increases muscle fullness, I think, because HGH increases the rate of glycogen storage in the muscle. I don't have any science to drop on you or scientific studies to drop, but this is my speculation, is that it also immediately increases muscle glycogen stores and the efficiency and effectiveness at storing muscle glycogen. It also makes you denser immediately, and I would believe that this is due to IGF-1. You could also say, well, HGH increases blood sugar levels a little bit. Why? Because HGH increases available fat for your body to burn because it's burning your own body fat, thereby, more blood sugar, filling out the muscles, giving it more energy to use, right? And if you talk to pro athletes, they notice too, when they're dieting hard, they stay fuller. So 2 reasons. Could either be because of muscle glycogen. I think this is very likely because you're pulling off your own body fat. Your body's converting some of it into glucose. Well, and you're also increasing blood glucose because any carbs you eat, you have more for your body to store into muscle glycogen. Anyways, you take HGH, all right? Increased muscle glycogen, arguably, and also increased density due to IGF-1 levels, all right? So we already talked about large muscle mass increase long-term, but there is, without a doubt, a small increase short-term in muscle mass as well. It's pretty much, guys, the same mechanism, but also, again, I would argue your body's going to be more efficient at storing muscle glycogen, and this happens immediately. And also, you're going to be denser due to IGF-1 increases, which happen immediately. So, all right, moving on to the pros. Man, oh man, this is really an unleashed video. We are talking about everything and not leaving out any details. This has to be said. This is going to be a fun one, all right, guys? Here we go. You're going to get younger. What in the world do I mean by this? Do I mean that you're going to reverse time? You're going to jump inside a time portal and go back in time? What I mean when I say you're going to get younger, I mean that HGH is the most powerful anti-ager ever. It's a powerful anti-aging hormone. So do I mean you're literally going to get younger? You're not going to get younger. But, however, when in terms of age, you're not actually going to get younger. We're not turning the clock back. We don't have a time machine. What you're doing is you're actually making your body younger. Why? Because you're going to have more new cells new often. So if we're talking about making the cells in your body younger, yes, this is absolutely true. And this is why when people go on HGH, either replacement or therapy, whatever, this is why, guess what they notice immediately? Their skin gets nicer. Wrinkles go away. Why? Because your body's replacing skin cells twice as fast. So really, I guess you are getting younger in the sense that your cells are getting younger because they're being replaced now at a rapid rate. So, it's funny how you can argue these things, or you can talk about these things in a roundabout way. But having said that, HGH is the most powerful anti-aging hormone ever. We're talking, an older, let's say somebody 40 years old, he has wrinkles. Nicer skin, wrinkles go away. You notice this like within a week. Within a week, you already notice this with your skin. You notice your hair, your nails grow faster. My facial hair grows faster. I notice that. You notice muscle recovery. Your joints, your tendons, your ligaments recover faster. Everything. Every tissue you have in the human body, whether it's, your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, whether it's external, like we talked about, hair, skin, nails, everything, guys. All these tissues pretty much are basically those cells are getting replaced more often with newer cells, thereby doing what? Making you look way younger and feel way younger for that matter, because the cells are newer. You're replacing the older cells. So the thing is that, you're going to get younger. No, you're not going to get younger in terms of years, but you are getting younger because those cells are newer cells. You're going to feel better. You're going to look better all over. And this is pretty much with every single tissue, guys. All right. Sum this up. HGH is an extremely powerful, potent anti-ager, and it is amazing. All right. I am in my 20s, guys, and I notice a huge deal when I notice a huge amount of change. Again, watch my other video. I talk about using high dose ipamorelin and also CJC 1295 no DAC. That's what my doctor is prescribing me through Prometheus HRT with the prescription, pharmaceutical grade, vial. Guess what? I noticed big time. I'm in my 20s. I noticed big time going back to where I was in terms of HGH level, where I was when I was 18 versus without it. there's a big difference. I notice a huge difference in terms of, skin, hair, nails, and especially recovery. I notice I recover way faster and I feel way better in general when doing that. So moving on, guys, from anti-aging, let's talk about this. Improved eyesight. What in the world could he mean by that? Improved eyesight. I've never heard anything like that before. Exactly. That's what we got to talk about. There are some studies on this, but there's also evidence on this, and then there's also more evidence. Let's talk about it. Let's first start out with a brand new discovery, which scientists made. 2 discoveries. Well, we'll talk about the first one. We'll talk about the second one in a minute. The first discovery that scientists made, they realized that the rod and cone cells in your eyes, guys, these are the cells in your eyeballs that do what? You guys already know what I'm going to say. The rod and cone cells are responsible for seeing black and white and color. What scientists realized recently was that the rod and cone cells in your eyes, yes, the cells themselves, can regenerate. Your body makes more of them. So, what people used to think is that, that's why your parents, when they tell you don't look at the sun, I was a bad kid. I did that all the time. All right. But the thing is that if you look at the sun or you look at bright light and you burn out rod or cone cells, let's say you kill them, right? You're a dumb kid. Like, again, I did this, unfortunately. They thought that when you do that, when the rod and cone cells die, you have a certain number in your eyes, and when they burn out, once they burn out, they're burnt out, and your vision just gets less and less. And we find, guys, in, again, the latest scientific research, we find out that's not true. Your body actually can regenerate rod and cone cells. So then, what stands in the way? What stands in the way with the regenerating of the rod and cone cells? We've been talking about it this whole time. HGH levels, all right? The reason your eyesight gets bad over time is why? Because the rod and cone cells are decreasing in number, and also could get into cataracts and all that other stuff. But, one of the biggest things people notice, this is one of the biggest things I notice, and other people have noticed this as well with HGH. When you do HGH therapy, your eyesight gets better. All right? So the big take home here is that first and foremost, rod and cone cells regenerate. Number 2, if your HGH levels are high, your eyesight's going to be better all the time. I notice my eyesight is better when using HGH, okay? This is more of a long-term thing I have noticed, and I've never had to use glasses, so that's awesome. Let's see here. Moving on in the pros. Let's talk about this one. Improved cognitive function. What do I mean by this? If you're doing HGH replacement therapy, whatever, you're going to notice you're sharper mentally and you feel better. Now, I don't know if this is only because of, you're feeling better, or actually, I take back what I just said. We know it's not only because you're feeling better because of the effects of HGH. You feel good, you feel happier, you feel better in general. HGH makes you feel way better, all right? It's one of the reasons you run around, you're happy when you're a kid. What do we know? Scientific discovery number 2. Ready for it? You can look this stuff up, guys. Please fact check me. They didn't know this until recently, but scientists realized that guess what you can do? You can actually regrow neurons in your brain. Again, scientists thought for the longest time, just like the rod and cone cells, you have a certain number, and when you burn them out or they die, that's it. They're toast, all right? No. With the neurons in your brain, they found out the same thing. If you drink alcohol, you do this, you do that, you kill brain cells, right? What they thought is when your brain cells are gone, they're gone, that's it. No. They found out recently that neurons can regenerate. Your brain cells actually can regenerate. But what does this come back to? It comes back once again to HGH levels, all right? So in terms of cognitive function, mental ability, cognitive function, how smart you are, HGH is going to boost that. Now, I am going to say that none of these claims have been approved by the FDA, all right? But we know that, again, neurons regenerate, HGH increases regeneration rates of all these tissues in the human body. So I'm just telling you guys flat out, follow, you can follow the literature. No, this has not been proven in any long-term medical studies. The same as I don't think the rod and cone thing has been either. But I can tell you guys that arguably without a doubt that these things occur. So let's see here. What else do I need to say? Improved eyesight, improved cognitive function and ability. And again, both of these things, the eyesight and the cognitive, improving cognitive function, mental function, this is going to be more of a long-term thing. You'll notice probably within the first month, but the thing is that this builds over time. You're building back up. Things like in better skin and stuff like that, this happens more rapidly, but you will notice these things with HGH, human growth hormone. Okay, we're still going in the pros, so let's keep hammering through this, all right? Here we go. Let's talk about this. Joints, tendons, ligaments. HGH is directly responsible for doing what? Increased collagen synthesis and also healing joints, tendons, ligaments. If you are a bodybuilder or a hard training athlete, fitness, whatever, guess what's going to be happening? Your joints, your tendons, your ligaments are going to be pounding. It depends what sport you're doing, how long you're doing, what you're doing. But the bottom line is that your joints, your body in general, we're talking skeletal system, is going to be under greater load. HGH is proven not only to increase collagen synthesis, but also, again, it's healing your joints, your tendons, your ligaments. Testosterone does not do that. Although indirectly testosterone does this if you're not taking an AI, because testosterone increases estrogen levels. The estrogen levels will increase HGH, natural HGH production. So indirectly, testosterone does help your joints, tendons, ligaments a little bit, but HGH is going to do this way more. All right, covered that. Moving on. Improved sleep. Now, this is a huge one that people do not talk about very often. HGH increases, whether it's HGH synthetic, whether it's synthetic HGH injections, or whether it is HGH peptides, human growth hormone increase and will increase sleep. All right. You'll sleep better. You'll sleep longer, and you will feel amazing on it. So in terms of, HGH and sleep, your quality and quantity is going to increase. And that's another reason, if you take a large dose of HGH and you go to the gym, you're going to be kind of lethargic. All right. It depends how much HGH, a little bit of HGH, you'll have energy, you'll feel good, but when HGH levels climb, it makes you tired. You want to lay down. Put it this way. If you were to take a big shot of HGH, you're going to lay down and nap, and you're going to have a puddle of drool hanging out of your mouth when you wake up. It's that kind of nice, floating on a cloud HGH sleep, all right? It's amazing. It's like sleeping like a baby. And I believe that's one of the reasons, guys, when you get older, your sleep quality deteriorates, is not just because melatonin production decreases, but because HGH, human growth hormone, levels decrease. When you sleep, you just don't sleep the same, all right? It's not like floating on a cloud, all right? Let's see here. Having said that, moving on from sleep, and we know HGH increases sleep quality, but moving on from that, this is proven, scientific, medically proven, HGH, human growth hormone, increases endurance and stamina, both in strength sports, bodybuilding, powerlifting, etc., and also in long distance, such as running marathons and everything else, all right? HGH increases endurance and stamina. It actually does this quite a bit, and this is one of the reasons HGH is banned in, natural competitions as far as sporting events, all right? Football, cycling, marathon running, all this other stuff. Why? Because it works really well for boosting endurance and stamina. There's so many different mechanisms we could talk about, but, we'll name a couple. Number one, you're supplying your body with more energy. Why? You're breaking down your body's own fat reserves faster, and you're increasing your energy, available energy to your body. Just like L-carnitine. L-carnitine makes your body, pick burning fat over carbs. You have more fat to burn, and it's more efficient at burning fat. You take L-carnitine, you have higher energy levels. You have higher energy levels, you have better endurance and stamina. It's the same thing with HGH. You take HGH, you increase the energy, available energy for your body to burn, thereby increasing endurance and stamina. And also you feel better too, so you're more likely to push yourself harder. Let's see here. HGH, moving on to the pros. HGH, human growth hormone, increases fertility in males. I know this for certain. Why? Because HGH increases sperm count and also, semen motility or semen quality. My bad. It increases sperm count, sperm motility, and also semen quality in males. And also it increases sexual function in males. Now, as far as females, I don't have a ton of research on this, but because most of the people watching this video are going to be males anyway. But the thing is that I would presume it's not going to increase fertility as much in women. Why? Because women already have a set count of eggs. Having said that, HGH, moving on to the pros, is going to increase testosterone levels. Why? Let's say you're a natural person. Let's say you're completely natural. You say, okay, I don't want to start TRT because I don't want to screw up my body, but I want to go to Prometheus or a different clinic and get ipamorelin, CJC 1295, no DAC, and a prescription combination vial, crank my HGH levels back to where I was when I was 18. What's going to happen? What's going to happen is that the Leydig cells in the testicles are going to work better, and overall you're just going to increase testosterone levels, much like you were increasing sperm count and semen motility. Pretty much everything in the human body, guys, works better with HGH. Only exception to that is we'll talk about insulin resistance in the cons in a little bit and why this happens. Okay, guys, I think that is pretty much it, besides just one other point. One last thing I wanted to say, last pro with HGH Unleashed, is this. HGH is a feel-good hormone. Much like if you've watched my Dianabol Unleashed video or my Testosterone Unleashed video, it gives this almost the same effect, except it feels slightly different. HGH gives you type of euphoria, feel-good effect. It's not like a drug by any means, but if you have high HGH levels, you feel a lot happier, more content, you just feel good. And why do you feel good? I would argue it comes back to the cells in your body. You have newer cells, that's why little kids with high HGH levels, they feel great all the time. Why? Because they actually feel great. So the thing is that, HGH, and you can test this for yourself if you get a prescription for synthetic HGH or HGH peptides. Right when your HGH shoots up, you say, hey, I'm feeling a lot better. You feel a lot better. And, I think there are receptor sites in your brain. I don't have a study on this, but I'm pretty sure there's receptor sites in your brain that also respond positively to higher levels of HGH, improving mood. Guys, that's all of the pros. That is HGH Unleashed. All of the pros. We hammered those out. We hammered those out without a doubt. Now we're going to move on into the cons. Again, Unleashed everything you need to know. I presume that this section is going to be quite a bit shorter. All right, with the cons, starting with the cons. Con number one, got to talk about it. Cancer risk. Question mark. We got to address this. So, what scientists have seen, and again, I want to say this first and foremost. There is no proven link yet to HGH and cancer. However, there's a strong correlation between, high IGF-1 levels and cancer in terms of what? They're not willing to say yet HGH causes cancer. All right, we're not there yet. All right, guys, I'm going to give you everything unbiased, uncensored. All right. They're not willing to say high HGH levels cause cancer. They're not there yet. But in studies, and you can look this up with IGF-1, in studies, they have found that high levels of high levels of IGF-1, not HGH, but high levels of IGF-1 can increase the risk of developing cancer. So the thing is that if we are talking about HGH replacement, put your levels back where you were when you were 18, and you use that, little risk, little increase in risk of developing cancer, from what I know. All right. However, if you're somebody and you're saying, okay, I'm going to take 8, 12, 16 IUs, which is 2 to 4 times. 16 IUs is 4 times what you would naturally produce when you were 18. Let's go into the abuse category. If you go into HGH abuse or IGF-1 abuse for that matter, what do we see? The higher you go, the more likelihood you have of developing cancer over time. And why? Because what we know, it's connected to the IGF-1. Now, why? I don't know, but we know that it's not connected to the HGH so much. We know that it's connected to the IGF-1. I wish I could give you guys an answer on that. All right, so cancer risk. Possible, not probable with HGH. And especially not probable whatsoever if you're just doing HGH replacement and not abusing human growth hormone, okay? Moving on, let's talk about diabetes risk with HGH, human growth hormone. Now this has to be talked about, this has to be said. Why? It is proven, scientifically proven, absolutely indebatable, that HGH increases blood sugar levels, all right? Now, the two things that remain are this. How much HGH are you taking, and how much is your blood sugar level increasing? So let's take a couple people here. Let's say you're a healthy individual, 20 to 40 years old, and you're doing HGH replacement, either synthetic HGH or HGH peptides, ipamorelin, CJC, whatever, all right? All right, so let's say you're a healthy 20 to 40-year-old. You exercise regularly, you're decently healthy, no blood sugar issues. You go on HGH replacement or even above that, a little bit above that, you're not going to run into any issues. Why? Because any additional blood sugar, your body is going to dispose of rapidly, all right? If it needs, most of the time it's going to dispose of it. Why? Because it's going to convert HGH into IGF-1. The IGF-1 is going to lower that increase in blood sugar. No big deal. However, with people that are abusing HGH, we're talking not replacement dose. What's going to happen is that the HGH is going to be driving up blood sugar more and more, and the conversion to IGF-1 is not going to be enough to basically pack the blood sugar into the cells, thereby doing what? It's then going to require your body is going to make the pancreas then require to pump out insulin almost at a constant rate to basically push the rest of the blood sugar out of the bloodstream. And over time, this does wear and tear on the pancreas, on the beta cells, which release insulin, and it can cause diabetes over time. But we're talking with abuse. So the question here is that with in regards to HGH replacement, is there a diabetes risk? Extremely, extremely low. All right? Extremely low. And you can always confirm this by doing blood work. And the thing is that if you're healthy, let's say this, if you're healthy and you don't have any blood sugar issues, there's virtually no diabetes risk with HGH in terms of replacement. And even if you go above a replacement, it's still extremely low. The problem that you run into is two. If you have type 2 diabetics, if you have type 2 diabetes and you're doing, if you have type 2 diabetes, which is insulin resistance, and you're doing HGH replacement, it's probably not a good idea because you're going to be increasing, your body already has a hard time getting rid of the blood sugar. So, you know, the only two things I would caution you guys is, number one, if you have type 2 diabetes, you don't want to do HGH replacement, all right? And if you're a healthy person, HGH replacement looks no risk pretty much. However, if you're going to abuse HGH, you know, think using 2 to 3 times to 4 times what the body makes, you're going to be putting strain on your pancreas over time, all right? And it's just not worth it, all right? So that's pretty much it with diabetes risk. And, you know, the thing is, guys, I actually already explained that with the IGF-1. No need to get into it more. Moving on to the cons. Let's talk about this. This is not well known with HGH, human growth hormone use. Internal organ growth. We got to talk about this. Is there internal organ growth with HGH? You ready? You guys ready for this? No, there is not internal organ growth with HGH. All right, even with we have let's take Dorian Yates for example. Dorian Yates, for years, we're talking years on end, Dorian Yates used 8 to 12 IUs of human growth hormone. That's 2 to 3 times the amount of HGH you produce when you are 16 to 18, all right? So even with Dorian Yates, 8 to 12 IUs pretty much every single day for years, we're talking 5 years plus, he got his internal organs checked. No internal organ growth. Now, why is this? Now, this is not me telling you guys, oh, it's safe to go use all this HGH long term. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that based on people that have done this, even extremely large amounts of HGH usage and abuse, internal organ growth is none. Why? Why is this? Because basically what happens is once you reach in your DNA, once you reach your genetic limit, so to speak, your body knows how big to make your intestines, how big to make your bones, everything else. Once you reach that threshold, the DNA basically shuts off. That gene shuts off. It doesn't get any bigger. So you can have HGH, but it's not going to continue growing. All right, and that's the reason why. Even though in our 20s, a lot of men in their 20s still have pretty high HGH levels. There's most men it starts to drop off, but there's a lot of men in their 20s that still have high HGH levels. And are we getting taller and we getting big stomachs from the HGH? No, our genes have shut off. The DNA has shut off. All right, so we don't really see that. Now, that's not to say if somebody took even higher doses, if somebody was disposed, or if somebody took 20 IUs for 5 years. That's not to say that you could actually grow internal organs. I don't know. All right, I don't know. But we know in the case of Dorian Yates, again, 8 to 12 IUs for like 5 years plus, no internal organ growth. So anyways, let's see here. Let's talk about gut distension. We already addressed the elephant in the room. In terms of internal organ growth, no. Big answer is no. Unless dosages are crazy high, and even then we're not certain. However, when talking about gut distension, a distended gut or a pregnant belly, whatever you want to call it with bodybuilders, fitness, athletics, yes, growth hormone absolutely causes this. Now the question is why? Here's the answer. It's from IGF-1 at large dosages. What do I mean by this? If you abuse HGH or you take IGF-1, what happens? All along, you can look this up, guys, please. All along your intestines, you have tons and tons of what? IGF-1 and insulin receptor sites. So what happens if you slam tons and tons of HGH as a bodybuilder or any person? What happens if you slam tons and tons of HGH? What's going to happen? What's going to happen is you're going to be hitting those receptor sites and storing fat around your intestines, all right? So what's going to be happening is that what we see there is not organ growth. What we see is fat being stored. Like these pregnant bellies, they're basically beer guts, guys. The pregnant bellies you see with bodybuilders are not their intestines pushing out. What we see is fat storage behind the actual muscle wall itself. And this is why it's from the IGF-1 and the insulin. Now, if they're taking insulin, it makes this way worse. But even if they're just abusing HGH, we see this. Why? Because HGH receptor sites, so if you abuse HGH, it's from the IGF-1 it turns into, and also because your body's going to have to produce more insulin to get rid of the excess blood sugar which is going to store more fat behind the muscle wall and causing this beer gut. Basically, that's what it is. It's a beer gut with HGH. Now, this can happen with HGH abuse, insulin abuse, and IGF-1 abuse. And it happens the worst when bodybuilders are taking all three at the same time. So that's what that's from, guys. If you don't want to have a distended belly, here's a secret. Just do HGH replacement. Don't abuse this drug, all right? Don't abuse it in the first place. You only have one body, all right? Moving on. Let's talk about the carpal tunnel. Does HGH cause carpal tunnel? Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. Without a doubt, when talking about doses of abuse. Why? Causes the nerves to basically get pinched. Causes the joint to swell. Causes the nerves to get pinched. Cause carpal tunnel, all right? So does HGH, if you take HGH replacement, put you back to where you were when you're 18, are you going to have carpal tunnel? No. If you abuse HGH, are you going to have carpal tunnel? Yes, dependent on how genetically prone you are to it. Moving on. Moving on to the cons. Organ toxicity. Does HGH have any organ toxicity? No, it doesn't. In fact, just the opposite. We find that with HGH, human growth hormone, actually reduces. Let's take it the other way. HGH, no organ toxicity. However, HGH does the opposite. It increases liver function, kidney function, pretty much any internal organ you have, liver, kidneys, heart for that matter. HGH improves and increases the function. Why? In the kidneys, for example, you have things called nephrons, which filter out your blood. These can actually hypertrophy, basically get buffed. These nephrons get jacked to be able to filter out more blood more efficiently, more effectively. So what happens is that from HGH use, the nephrons actually get better at filtering out blood. Now, this is only going to happen a little bit with replacement, but obviously in terms of abuse, this happens more, and then it can cause other problems because if the kidneys get too big and liver. So this is going to be, again, it's a dose dependent thing. We can talk about this for a long time, but I don't want to bring up there's been bodybuilders in the past who have died, who have used and abused high amounts of HGH, and they have been found, after they died, that they had really big kidneys and other organs, all right? So the thing is, we know that internal organs can grow from high and heavy HGH abuse, but how high? I don't know how much this guy was taking, but I'm sure he was taking a lot more than Dorian Yates. We already talked about that. So last thing, heart enlargement. Can you have heart enlargement with human growth hormone? Yes, you can. But it's going to have to be, again, quite a ways above HGH replacement to do that. Guys, what I would recommend to everybody here is that if you want to do HGH replacement, talk to your doctor, do that. But I would advise, guys, don't ever, take more than an HGH replacement dose. And what is an HGH replacement dose? Let's get right into this now. Here we go. We're done with the pros, done with the cons, talking about HGH replacement. Here we go. And by HGH replacement, I'm talking about dosages. Here we go. So for HGH, again, this is an Unleashed video. Let's get into dosages. What dosage of HGH should you use in order to maximize performance, fat burning, muscle building, anti-aging, literally all this huge stack of pros we talked about. We talked about all these pros. Took me probably 40 minutes. I'm going to have to check back and see how long this video is. But, okay, in order to get all the pros with none of the cons, what dosages? Ready? 4 to 5 IUs per day for a full 100% replacement back to where you were 16 to 18 years old. All right? 4 to 5 IUs. Now, why? We know, medically proven, the male human body, 16 to 18 years old, is going to produce about 4 to 5 IUs of synthetic HGH per day. All right. So if you're a 16 to 18 year old male with good genetics, you produce naturally 4 to 5 IUs. All right. Now, having said that, so for a full, if somebody is producing, let's say you're 40 years old, you're producing hardly any HGH. If once you introduce exogenous HGH into your body, let's say you want to go synthetic, your body's going to shut down the rest of the production it's making. All right, that's just how it works. So to do a full replacement, let's say you're 40 years old and you've got garbage HGH levels. My recommendation: 4 IUs. How are you going to take this? 1 hour before bed, and you're going to take 2 IUs 1 hour before bed, and then 2 IUs when you wake up. And again, talk to the doctors at Prometheus HRT or any other HGH replacement clinic or whatever to get dialed in with this. All right. But that is my professional recommendation. Usually what they tell you is, it would be something like 2 IUs before bed, 2 IUs on wake. I say 2 IUs an hour before bed. Why? Because if you have, if you have any adverse reaction, like let's say site swelling, or maybe you nicked, maybe you caught a blood vessel or something, it can happen. It's rare, but it happens. That way you're not waking up in a panic wondering what's going on. All right. So it would be better to do it an hour before bed, make sure everything's fine, go to sleep. No big deal. So that's pretty much it, guys. You said up to 5 IUs. You said an 16, 18-year-old male, good genetics produces 4 to 5 IUs. So why are you saying 4? The reason I'm telling you guys 4 IUs of HGH for a full complete replacement, the reason I'm saying that is because we know that is going to be arguably safe long-term, no problems. 5 IUs is kind of starting to push the envelope as far as going up and over. You're getting too close to the cons, in my opinion. So it'd be better off, and it's only 1 IU, better off stay as safe as possible. So again, if you're 40 years old, 30 years old, let's say your HGH level is trash. My HGH level is, my natural HGH level is good, but it's not where it was when I was 18. So I'm using HGH peptides, ipamorelin, CJC, NODAC, put me right back to where I was when I was 18. Now let's say in 10 years, my natural HGH level is trash, all right? So let's say you're somebody and your natural HGH level is trash. They check this with an IGF-1 test because HGH is in the body, in and out in pulses, right? So IGF-1 is the best testing method. So anyways, let's say I'm older and my HGH level's trash. This is what you want. To get all the pros, none of the cons, and be as safe as possible while gaining the most performance, 4 IUs every day, 2 IUs before bed, 2 IUs on wake, and that's how it goes. If you wanted to do 5 IUs, you had a show or this or that, you wanted to peak out, 5 IUs is going to be fine short term. We're talking months. But to do 5 IUs for years, that's a little bit, now you're getting too close to the cons. You could do it, but the thing is then why? You're not going to have much more gain at 5 IUs than 4 IUs, but you're getting that much closer to the cons. Last thing in dosage, guys, is HGH peptides. Again, watch my ipamorelin unleashed video, or watch I did a video, ipamorelin, or watch any of my peptide videos. Watch GHRP6, GHRP2, hexarelin, ipamorelin. I currently use ipamorelin, with a prescription through my doctor, pharmaceutical grade. And the best growth hormone releasing peptide in the world is going to be ipamorelin or hexarelin. And out of those two, if you want the most HGH release in a week, and if you want something you can use pretty much every day, it's going to be ipamorelin. Go watch my video on ipamorelin, or watch my cycle. Watch all of them, all right? If you want to know all this information. Guys, we're done with dosage. We've only got one last section to cover. This is HGH Unleashed. Now we're talking about any extra final information that you need to know. And then you guys guessed it, we are out of here. Number one, last thing to say, last couple things to say. HGH, human growth hormone, is the best of the best. There is nothing like HGH in the world. Absolutely nothing compares to HGH, whether it's testosterone, anabolic steroids, anything. All right? Why? If you stuck around and you listened to all the pros, you know that in terms of fat burning, muscle mass, hypertrophy, hyperplasia especially, we're talking long-term increases in muscle mass, anti-aging effects, hair, skin, nails, improved eyesight, cognitive function, improved sleep. HGH is in a completely different. HGH is not an anabolic steroid. HGH is a peptide hormone. It's basically the life hormone, okay? So in terms of this hormone, HGH is really the best of the best. There's nothing like it, and nothing does its job like HGH. You know, if you want to be at your best performance-wise and everything-wise, all you need is HGH and testosterone. That's pretty much it, guys. All right, so again, nothing compares to it. Moving on, what extra information do you need to know? HGH is much better and safer for that matter than IGF-1, both in terms of pros and cons. I'm going to do an IGF-1 Unleashed video here soon. But pretty much, guys, what you need to know is that HGH is far superior to IGF-1 in terms of muscle mass, fat burning, and all of these gains which we talked about. You know, whether it's the healing ability, recovery, long-term muscle mass increases, eyesight, cognitive function, sleep, endurance, stamina, joints, tendons, ligaments, fertility, everything. HGH. When comparing HGH to IGF-1, if you were only going to take one, HGH blows IGF-1 out of the water completely. Why? IGF-1 is more of the helper to HGH. It has some benefit, but the thing is that it has carries a lot of heavy-handed cons with IGF-1 in terms of using it alone. We'll get into that in the IGF-1 Unleashed video, but HGH, most of all the pros we talked about happen because of HGH itself, the 191 amino acid sequence binding directly onto receptor sites initially. IGF-1 is pretty much just the helper that helps HGH carry out its functions, but you need that IGF-1 to bind to what? There's HGH receptor sites on muscle tissue, fat tissue, joints, tendons, ligaments, skin, hair, nails, everything. We talked about the brain, we talked about the eyes, everything. So the thing is that HGH is indispensable. It is invaluable. It's priceless in terms of a hormone. You can't just use IGF-1. So when talking, and also guys, if you use HGH, it's going to convert into IGF-1 after. So you're going to have increased HGH level and increased IGF-1 level. So you're getting a perfect mix of that. When people take high doses of IGF-1, they set themselves up for a lot of cons. All right, and in the muscle mass, you will build more muscle mass, not short term. You will build more muscle mass long term using HGH over IGF-1. The only reason people say, "Oh, I built so much muscle off IGF-1" is because IGF-1 still works through some of the same mechanisms as insulin and thereby fills out your muscles. So people start IGF-1, they get huge, they get pumped, and they think that they're building all this muscle. No, IGF-1 works through some of the same mechanisms as insulin, about 20% if I recall. So the thing is that, in terms of muscle, fat loss, and all of the pros, HGH blows IGF-1 out of the water. I'm going to explain, we'll get into this in the IGF-1 Unleashed video. Last thing, guys, and we're out of here. Man, this has been one big video, but it's HGH Unleashed, so whatever. Last thing, guys, we're out of here. HGH is a life boost. It's a life changer. It is a life boost, life changer, whatever you want to call it, restoring HGH levels back to 18 is an absolute life changer. All right. It is a huge boost. Why? Because HGH is also basically the life hormone. All right. It replaces pretty much every single cell in your body, replaces the tissues in one way or another. So the thing is, guys, if you're in your late 20s, you're 30, you're 40, you're 50, or whatever, if you go back to where you were when you're 18, and again, you can do this through Prometheus HRT, either with synthetic HGH if you qualify, or HGH peptides like I'm doing, ipamorelin, CJC, no DAC, whatever. But if you go back to where you were when you're 18 in terms of HGH levels, it is a huge game changer, and it will change your life, and you will feel amazing. All right, guys. What more can be said? This is HGH Unleashed. I'm Seth Spartan. Guys, stay safe, stay healthy, do everything right legally under doctor supervision, and we are out of here.